Good morning, good morning, good morning. I see the sun outside, and it's supposed to get down to less rain today. Let's hope so, because yesterday I swam into my house. Just want you to know that it just rained the last couple of days, and I'm hoping that I won't have an interruption. I'm going to give you that proviso right now, only because I had called the city because the way we're like on a dead end, but everyone uses my driveway to turn around. So the big trucks that come to get the garbage and all the other recycled stuff, they end up turning around here and they've broken down the driveway and outside in the road. So it holds a gully of water. So anyway, I am the master complainer, and I tried to address this before, and they told me I had to take pictures. So anyway, I didn't take any pictures. I just called them again and bugged them again. So I see the car and a car and a truck outside. They may pop on my door, and if they do, I'll give you that quick warning because I need to make sure that they know. Yes, I am the one that called, and yes, I do need them to fix the problem. But good morning. Good morning. I just want to say, are you free? I'm asking the question. Do you feel you're free? I sometimes think that good morning, OJ, that you have to consider what's happening to us as a people over time. We can look at our history. Some of us, regardless if we're black, if we're Jewish, if we're Asian American, whatever, whomever, even all ethnicities have had probably some feeling of not being free at times. Some may be less than others, and some may not have ever experienced it. But I just woke up this morning with this spirit of, what is it to really be free? How can we discuss it for ourselves? Because to me, it is a personal journey. It's a personal journey that maybe others can join in and get some understanding with you, but only you know how you feel about it. Only you know how much you experienced, how much you understand, how much you know. You know, the interesting thing is that I come from a family who lived in the South, but I never knew the South. I never knew the South until my husband, who was transferred here. He was military, Navy, and so we went from New York to Italy for 4 years, and then finally back down south. And I'm like, my sisters and brothers would never come visit me because they were much older than myself, and they knew their experiences of the South weren't good. They remember the discrimination. They remember the how. Good morning, Miss Joan. They remembered how faucets were identified as white and black, or actually they said it was colored back then. They remember how the theater would be the balcony for the black people, and everyone else got to have the supposed better seats on the front and on the main floor. So they understood it. And I would always say, well, just come visit. It's not like that. But I didn't have the experience that they had. So therefore, I couldn't understand it. They felt that the South would never be a place of freedom. They thought the South would never be free to them. And I didn't understand any of that. But then I started, I think, going back and I had just dealt with family going back, and I went back and I got back to the 1860s. Then it got kind of muddy, murky kind of colored because I couldn't determine anything, especially on my father's side. And then my mother, hers was a little bit easier to follow to a certain extent because probably 2 generations ago, my family came from white descendants. You couldn't tell that by my color. You couldn't tell that by my brothers and sisters because my mother went and found the real color because my father was a real dark colored skinned man. So sometimes we don't understand what free is and who free meant, what free meant to other people, because we may only be talking about our free and our relation to it. So anyway, I'm gonna start off with this. I'm gonna first do a poem, then I'm gonna ask you the question I ask every morning. So this one talks about how to travel alone, because sometimes we don't know it. We don't even know what it is to be alone, because we've not seen freedom in the same sense that maybe other people have seen it. And so to be alone, meaning is that you are free to go and do what you want to do, wherever you want to go, how long you will stay, what you may see along the way, all those kinds of things, because there's a process of selection, there's a process of choice. And then you think back that some people didn't have a choice, they didn't have the freedom, they didn't have the opportunity to see other things other than what was allowed for them to see or for them to be. That's just the way it was given. So anyway, this one's called How to Travel Alone. No name. It was given in terms of authorship. But it says, go wherever you want. Be whoever you want. Refresh your soul by feeding your senses. Let fear be your shadow, not your guide. Move like a hummingbird, drinking nectar. Sit as quietly as a rock. Weave your memories into a secret story you will keep with you always. So to me, that's just life experience. Finding a way to make whatever it is that you're looking for yours. You own it, you know. And because I think the question of understanding what freedom is to you, it may not be that everybody accepts you, but in terms of your feeling of yourself and how you feel about the world around you, says that you may have some freedom to do some things. But I always ask the question, I will always ask that question, how free are you and I? We don't know unless we experience what our freedoms are. So anyway, the second one I have, I'm going to ask you this question right now. Are you stuck? Yes, occasionally we are all stuck. We may not know all of our freedom. We may not all know all of our abilities, our contacts may be toxic in some sense, but we still keep them. And therefore, because they are more dominant to our subdominance, that we've allowed ourselves to be ruled. So sorry for the dog. Once again, he hears somebody outside. Sorry for that. So anyway, we're going to talk about self-love. This is the second poem. It says, once when I was running from all that haunted me, to the dark I was succumbing to what hurt unbearably, searching for the one thing that would set my sad soul free. In time I stumbled upon it, an inner calm and peace. And now I am beginning to see and to believe in who I am becoming, and I've yet to be. Who I am becoming and what I am yet to be. That is by Lang Leaf. So once again, it does have promise. It gives opportunity to search into yourself, to find your own things that make you feel free, that make you find happiness, that make you move forward. All those things certainly connect with the self you are, and it is a self-love. It really and truthfully is. If you can find your way, find out who you are, not settling for everything, but waiting on what it is that has been given to you to search out and own. Because some things aren't for everybody. Some things are just for you. That's it. So when we talk about free, it says free, and we go back down to Marion, Marion W. I'm getting ready to call her MW. But anyway, Marion says not to be free is to not to be under control or the power of another, able to act or be done as one wishes. It says not or no longer confined or imprisoned. That's what to be free is. And I'm quite sure you may, through your lifetime, heard of people being in prison for things that they didn't do for 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, only to come out and only have a year or two before they pass on. So sometimes freedom is stolen, okay? Freedom is stolen. And sometimes we don't know what to do with our freedom because we're not used to having it. We're not used to being in charge. We're not used to being the head of our lives. In terms of the human factor, not the father upstairs, but just on a human level, we're not used to that. We're not used to controlling anything. So when we talk about being free, we talk about, you being on the loose, at liberty, at large, unchained, untethered, unshackled, unrestrained, and unsecure. Unsecured, meaning you can do what you want to do based on what you have to do, not based on what somebody says you can do. Good morning, Frank. Not saying anything you have to be tied up with somebody or something for you to do what has been given to you to do. And a lot of times we want to seek out somebody else's opinion, or we want to, not go forward if someone says something negatively. Well, they're going to. That's an opinion, But once again, we're asking you as individuals to show up yourself. Bring your own goods. Know what you bring to the table. Bring it, sell it, and whoever wants to buy it will. If not, guess what? Move on. Move on. So the F of free is freedom. When we look at the F, it's just freedom. It's the freedom. It's the power or the right to act, to speak, to think as one wants, without any hindrance or restraint. Meaning, you feel this, I feel like I'm going to take a trip to New York, or, I'm going to go to the grocery store, or I'm going to, cook a special dinner tonight for family and invite them in. Those things are choices of freedom. You're thinking it, you're acting on it, and it occurs. Those are freedom thoughts, freedom actions. Okay, and it says freedom is the right to, meaning it's entitlement. You have the right to do it. It's your privilege. It's your prerogative. Remember that song by Brown? Who was his first name? Put it in there if you remember. But anyway, Whitney's husband. Okay, he came out. It's my prerogative, my way of doing things. It talks about one's independence, one's self-governance, one's self-determination, one's self-liberty or liberation, one's emancipation, and one's deliverance. So all those things speak to freedom. And, when we speak about our personal freedom, we may have some, but then we also know that there's other things that are government ordered, such as paying taxes, making sure that you're not driving without a license, and making sure the car is registered, or your truck is registered. So all those things are things that, they really have moved along in terms of what freedom is. We have maybe freedom within a certain range, a certain latitude, a certain domain. But it's not like it's forever with everything. There's some things that they have to have some rules on, or people would be driving without licenses and never paying taxes, or running from paying taxes, keeping it so nobody else knows what's going on. But anyway, those are all the things dealing with freedom. The F of free is to be released, to look at what release speaks to. And release allows or enables one to escape from confinement, to escape from it, to set it apart, to let it out, to deliver something, to rescue something, to be, to really, it says to look at something untie, to untie something, to unloose, unshackle, to extricate. I like that word. To extricate something, to unhitch, to unbundle, unbridle, detach, and disentangle. All those speak to what release does. And I'm quite sure, if you can write it in there, if you've been released from something, anything, like I used to have clients who had been released from drugs, or released from bad marriages, or released from family members who were, they finally moved, from just released from a job, a job they didn't want. Okay. Sometimes we're released and we do want what we're released from. Don't get that wrong. We do want it, but it doesn't necessarily that it's going to end up being like that. Maurice, it's good to have you here. So sometimes you have to understand what the release is about, you know, and put it in your thought as being good, because sometimes we don't know what's good for us. We really don't know it, and sometimes something else is at play. The where you're being released from may be where it all comes out. It says, well, you know, they needed to be released from this because this wasn't a good fit. It wasn't. Good morning, Eric. So we have to talk about what release does for us, and sometimes that release, that freeness, just allows us to have time to do something else, something more worthwhile, something more beneficial, something more exciting, something more doable, um, something that gives us excitement. You know, in my freeness, I want to be excited. I want to be excited about something I'm doing. And I like the fact that when I'm ready to do it, I can do it. You know, if you have felt some freeness during this time of pandemic, write it in the thread. I'm just interested. If you feel that you've been freed up to do something, freed up to get away from something, or freed up to be free, you know, just to get that feeling like, hey, I'm not obligated to anything and I'll get to it when I want to. Write it in there. Oh, good morning, sunshine. It said so we really look at how being released from something frees us. It frees us to determine what our next step will be, or steps. Because sometimes you take one step, you got to take two. But if we're standing still and you're stuck in something and you can't move on, you know, you have to look around. What's holding me back? What's tying me up? What has me bridled to something? What has me where I cannot move? What is it? What is it? Why do I not feel free? Why do I not feel that I can be released from whatever it is? Okay? And sometimes you can't ask to be released. You have to just release yourself. Okay? Sometimes you have to just do it. You can't wait for anybody to tell you to do it, because I've always said, as long as people are getting the best of you, they're not going to ask for anything less, you know. But you may have to be the denominator that says, okay, I gave you my best back when. I'm done with that. I'm moving on. Sometimes very difficult. It's very difficult for us to move on to something. So the next letter in the word of free is emancipated. And you know, yes, I know emancipation, as we were always trained, we always associated with slavery, with and the proclamation. That's what our association was. That's how we walked. We walked that way. And so it wasn't ever associated with our personal freedom, our personal attention to where we go, what we do, when we want to do it. We never really associated it like that, but we should. We should, because when you've been emancipated, so you've been freed from anything legal. Ain't nobody holding you down legally, and if they are, you should be trying to work that around, socially or politically. Meaning, you should be able to vote who you want to vote for. When November comes, somebody should be standing at the polls, or at least applying for absentee voting, because it's important that we exercise our right, our privilege of freedom. And if we're free, then we should really be looking at, you know, how can we free others by exercising our right to vote. So that would certainly be something that we were emancipated years and years and years ago to do, and not everyone is exercised. Some people say, well, my vote's not going to count. Not true. Not true. Good morning, my niece in California. Good morning. Good morning. So anyway, we want to just keep it all going. Keep it all going. So to be emancipated looks at being free, being released, loosened, delivered. You know, it says liberated and disencumbered. All of those things speak to what emancipation does, meaning you have the right. You have the right to do some things. And if you're not exercising those rights, then sometimes we can't complain about what we get, you know, at another time. You know, if you never go and vote, then you really have nothing much to say about, who we end up being the leader. I mean, you can say it. Don't get me wrong, because not everyone, it's a personal choice, so not everybody knows if you voted or not. But the point I'm making is that to vote or to be emancipated really is freeing. The fact that you've exercised that right to say who you would like to have and who you would not like to have in office. And that can be local office, the regional, it could be on the national level, of course, of which this year is really important. And the last E of free is for empower. And to me, empower means you're in charge. No one else is in charge. To be empowered means is you're going to exercise your right to do whatever it is that you want to do. Go to school, get a degree, not go to school to get a degree. Marry, not marry. Vote, not vote. All of those things are empowerment, but it's yours. It's yours. It says to give someone the authority or power to do something, meaning that if you own it, it's yours. No one has to give you that. You just exercise it. So it says you're authorized, you're licensed, you're entitled to, it's permitted, you're allowed, you can be sanctioned. You could be something that's warranted, meaning given to you. It also says you can delegate it, you can enable it, and certainly you can become equipped with it. Important time to vote for 2020. Absolutely. It's a very important time. And, I'm not very political. I got to be honest. But as I see, the country being so divided, I'm hoping that everyone will exercise their right and their empowerment to vote, to be, to look at the fall of November and making it their choice of whoever they want or don't want in office. So anyway, when we talk about being free, we're really talking about our way of exercising how we go forward. Who are we? Do you feel free? Do you feel like, you're in a position that you've been released from prior, shackles, prior chains, prior pull tos instead of pull away froms? Indicate it. Indicate it. Write it down. And I always say this every day. I hope you have a pen and paper when you're in my little sessions, because I think there's a book in all of us. I really do. And I'm praying that you will exercise your right to write your story. Write your story. I don't want anybody necessarily to say they know all of my stories, because they don't know my hurts. They don't know my pains. They don't know where I felt that I wasn't free, or I wasn't, in a position to feel or exercise the freedom to do as I wanted to do. Sometimes marriages can put you in a position of feeling confined, feeling stoved up, feeling, cordoned off. And sometimes the marriages are freeing because you're both on the same wavelength and you do things, oneness as opposed to this one and that one. And so we look at how all that kind of ties together. So in terms of questions, today's questions are, do you feel free? Do you? I mean, be honest. Relationships, your job, your children, commitments. Sometimes your children can have it where you, no matter how old they get, you will always feel an obligation to dig them out, to dig whatever, and fill up the hole that they left behind. And then that hole is forgotten, and you move on to something else that they dig again. And you go on down there, fill up the hole. So we don't even know how we get in situations that make us feel not as free as we need to be. And I think when I was raising my daughter, I always felt bad because I had a job that traveled a lot, and her dad had already passed away. Okay, I couldn't change that. I couldn't. But I gave her the best I could as she was growing up. And then when I had to leave her, I left her in people that had my same ideology in terms of how she should be cared for in my absence. And then sometimes I thought I tried to make up for it when I came back. That's instinct. But sometimes instinct isn't always freeing. Sometimes instinct really shows where you feel you have a flaw, where you feel that you've fallen short. And so there may not be always the wiseness or the freedomness, and sometimes the characteristics that we display on just feeling that we've fallen short. It just is, you know. Question number 2: what does freedom mean to you? What does it mean to you? Your freedom. What's it mean to you? Question number 3: what have you been released from in the past or present? You know, has this pandemic really been, good for you to show that even though it is a pandemic, and even though you've been restricted on, social gatherings and, those kinds of things, meetings and greetings and churches and all those kind of things, which really talk about the closeness that you had with people, how has that changed you? Have you felt released from that? Meaning that's good, because now I don't have to go anywhere and there's no excuses for it. Don't know. Don't know. Could be. And the last question is: do you feel or know what it is to be empowered? Empowered, in control, making decisions for you, not for anybody else, for you. Do you know what it is? Write that down. What is it? What is it to feel empowered? Not just making decisions, but, going places, trying things, experimenting, with new foods. I'm always trying something new. And, sometimes my daughter will stop by, and after we go through the whole drill of where you've been, what you've been doing, and who you've been around, and I spray everything with Lysol, and sometimes she said, "Hey, you're getting a little close with that Lysol." So, you don't know. I don't know where she's been. So what I do is I'll let her try something. She said, "Oh, you can do that again," or she may say, that's okay. You don't have to give me any more of that." So sometimes we feel empowered to take on something new, and it may work, and it may not work. But anyway, that's today's session on feeling free, realizing the importance of finding our own freedom, and understanding what it is to be released from some things, sometimes some people, understanding our need to be empowered, at least empowered enough to make decisions that are reflective of what you believe and what you want, what you care about, just looking beyond. And if any of you have made some major, major things happen during these last 6 months, I want you to write it down. Write it down if you've made some major decisions. Like, I'm going to show you this. This came in the mail yesterday, which is the book that I wrote with Al Martin. And I'm excited about it because I did that. I finished it up during pandemic. I mean, just before it was really getting serious to stay away from this person and that person, I had chased down the illustrator to get some more details done. I chased down and the illustrator for the book was Carter Gaston, and wonderful pictures. And then the designer was graphics designer, excuse me, was DK1. Okay, and his real name is Desmond King. But wonderful, wonderful results I'm getting back from that, where I've heard from people who are just saying they're enjoying the book. It really is insightful. They're getting their kids involved in it, grandkids involved in it. So I am feeling that God led me right in terms of how to get that book done. And I did it during pandemic. Even dealing with, you couldn't really get a what I would call a traditional publisher. So it is that I published a book, through Winnie and Associates, which is my business. So I'm happy. I'm happy that it's certainly been good for me. Good morning, Kiwanis. Happy that you're here. And I just look forward to what's next. what is next in this period of empowerment, in this period of feeling free, in this period of feeling, you know, released to do other things. I say opportunity. Opportunity is great. I'm looking forward to it. I'm hoping that you all will certainly purchase a book and certainly spread the link that's out there on it is on Amazon, and it's called Al's 10 Fingers. He used them to play music. It's an insightful book, and it's also a book of encouragement for people to use music as a way of increasing the other things that's possible that goes on in the brain. Thank you so much. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow. Thank you, Joan. I will see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. Central Daylight Time. And be safe, be free, and look at all the things that you have before you and not behind. Do not be stuck. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye bye.